to check out a little something.
There's a myth that to work in aged care, you have to have an aged care background. Actually, what you need is people who are curious, who are smart, who care. That's what you need.
Emma Newman is a leading operations manager
who is showing organisations how to thrive under pressure and build the leaders who will shape tomorrow.
What have you seen out there that you want to do more of?
I definitely want to see more collaboration across industry. What I'm seeing at the moment is that providers are so focused on delivering their services that they're becoming quite insular. So the cross-collaboration between organisations is not as strong as it could be. My mum actually ran an aged care facility in Wiltshire in England. She was a nurse by career. So now I feel like I'm doing some justice for her as well. Everything I heard when I was little and growing up with a nurse and a paramedic for parents working opposite shifts now has come home to roost, and I sort of have a lot of insight, even though I haven't worked in the industry before.
Can you talk about any challenges that you've encountered and how you've overcome that?
I think for me, the biggest challenge I saw coming in was
cliffhanger. Stay tuned. What is that biggest challenge, Emma Newman?
Don't give it away just yet.
Changes every day. The biggest challenge at the moment is obviously just settling down post 1 November coming in and making sure the team are confident and can talk to the quality care that they deliver. So we're ready when the Commission come to visit us.
Now, I know Ant is very good at tracking the journey of our guests, so I'm going to try not to go there too much. But hearing that you've continued that rich legacy of your mum, we've got to give mum a bit of a shout out in terms of how she inspired you on this virtuous path.
Yeah, definitely. So she was a registered nurse for most of my life. She ran a place called Amesbury Abbey Nursing Home in Wiltshire. And I remember going there when I was quite young. And it was very much an old English stately home that had been turned into a nursing facility for the wealthier element of society. And Dad actually ended up, Dad was a paramedic, and in his side hustle was driving some of those older people to appointments, etc. So he got to drive all their fancy cars, which made him very happy.
Love it.
Very nice. So Amesbury Abbey was quite the spot.
It was, yes. There's still pictures of it on the internet. So it's very much the manor.
I think we have to see some pictures now. But so that's is that a love at first sight story between mum and dad? Dad the paramedic and mum the Florence Nightingale?
Dad was actually in the army when they met. Very quickly got out of the army. But yes, they spent their whole lives together. And prior to this, I actually worked at St. John WA. So I've followed in my dad's footsteps, and now I'm following in mum's footsteps. So very much living their legacy.
And I'm guessing that's where you might have crossed paths with our aunt.
Yes, sure did. Yep. Yes,
oh, that's great.
And have loved obviously getting to know him through his work across all aspects of our industry. And I was saying to someone the other day, I think the point of difference is absolutely, it's not just about the dollar.
Yes.
The industry that ants come from definitely has a little bit of that connotation behind it, but the difference here is actually connecting people and making a difference in the aged care industry, whether it's bringing sexy back or actually just making a difference. I think he does it every day. So
you can bring both.
We'll raise the roof for the
that's we call the A game. Bring the A game.
Recruitment.
Bring the ant. No, that's such a cool story too, Emma, because I think I only tracked down a story about my grandparents where my grandfather was a doctor and came out to Noumea and ran the hospital there for about 4 years during the war, and that's where my grandmother was a nurse, and in those days it was doctors had all the fun and had all the liquor and tobacco that was provided as part of the rations. But as I investigated more of his story, it was fascinating how much he was really leading the really early movements of the industrial relations, OH&S mindsets, really helping workers and laborers, look after themselves, their backs, all these elements. And it just felt like, my gosh, I didn't even know any of this before I got into the sector. But wow, it really connects you to like a deeper cause. I'm thinking this is different than just sort of seeing something or watching it play out in front of you and then you follow it. This is almost like a subconscious kind of calling there. But the more people I talk to that are in the human services sector, like they all have these really unique stories and higher callings that just almost come out later. But I love it because I see so much passion and so much great work that together this industry can have. But I'd like to drill in on some of those comments you made, because I guess I do see that as one of our probably biggest challenges as an industry, is that insular working. I mean, we have the same regulatory frameworks across all of these, circa 700 businesses, providers out there. And there's a lot of really just looking at it in isolation. And that collaborative nature that we have, I think we are losing for whatever reason. I think there's a lot more to gain as a wider community if we drop to a lot of that competitive areas, because there's your occupancy, I know, is up there in WA and a lot of that across the country. So occupancy really isn't the issue anymore. It's more about sustainability. It's about working with better for really the outcome of our dearest residents and families that we care for.
Absolutely. Definitely. And it's interesting. So since recording that, and I was the second guest on the show, I'm definitely actually seeing more collaboration. So a lot more people reaching out, a lot more conversation happening, more people open at some of the aged care events I've been at recently to sort of really connecting, not just in the moment, but on an ongoing basis. So I'm very hopeful for our future.
Why do you think it's been so fragmented? Is it by design? Is it neglect? Is it like where does it come from? So now we can focus on what do we need to change? What do we need to do different within our roles and specifically in roles that you have as part of your your workings?
I think there's a couple of things. One of them, you hit the nail on the head. So there's been certainly a level of competitiveness in the residential care sector. I can certainly talk to that because we were all competing to fill beds. So there was a lot of, this view that we just had to focus on ourselves and our own and filling our own beds. But as you said, occupancy, and particularly in WA, is extremely high now. Our Mercy Care's 5 facilities, we're sitting at pretty much 97% occupied and have been for about 12 months now. So very quick turnaround, big wait lists for some of our facilities. So that demand outstripping supply is having a benefit to the network in terms of it's reducing the competitiveness because beds are getting filled. We don't have to work so hard for that part of the business now. And I think the other thing as well is we're seeing a lot of movement. I've only been in the aged care sector 2.5 years now, but I'm seeing a lot of movement throughout the businesses. And with that movement comes maintenance of network. So when someone leaves your organization to else, they stay in contact. We stay in contact. We touch base. We share ideas. We share resources, etc., which is fabulous. And it's sad when you lose your team, but it's fabulous when you stay in contact and then actually expand that network.
That's so good. I mean, that's there's a consulting exercise called the 5 E's where you really look at everything from how do you entice families to your organization, then how do you enter them into your organization, and then whilst they're with you, how do you engage with them, but then how do you exit them, and then how do you extend the reach of Mercy to the families even after? And so some of these workshops produce some amazing connected outcomes, but really it drives that continued loyalty, but also the referral mechanism of what these families go on to tell all of their friends, family networks about care. And certainly you hit the nail on the head with that, but some of the outcomes of those workshops are very easy to implement. Things such as just continuing to send birthday cards or some form of remembrance card to loved ones, and just that sort of extending the brand post the actual journey that these residents have had. No, that's really on point. So what brought you that, I guess, into the Mercy role from maybe just talk a little bit about some of your past so people can see some of the diverse and hear more about your diverse background and how that diverse background is really playing out in some, fantastic, ways of working and different thinking that I feel is definitely needed for the problems that we are, facing, but will face in the near future.
I definitely didn't have the traditional route into aged care. So as I said, only been with the industry 2.5 years. Most of my background is actually in border control. So home office in the UK and then border force here and immigration. Was with the Department of Home Affairs for 8 years, and then basically realised my next step if I wanted career progression was to go to Canberra. There was no way I was leaving sunny Perth, not for anything, to go to Canberra. I left the UK for a reason. The weather was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So what are you saying?
So very much a case of, okay, I don't want to spend the next 20 years sitting in the same level, circling, potentially becoming a bit jaded and bitter. So what's next? And really did some soul searching about why I get out of bed in the morning. And it was 2 things. It was working in operational environments where there's always something different that comes out of left field, that continual challenge. I need that to keep me going. But something that has a real purpose. And we touched on that at the beginning of the segment. Purpose drives so many people in this industry. It was certainly common across the operational environments I've worked in. So from Border Force, it was all about keeping bad people and bad things out of the community to keep Western Australia safe, in my instance. Went from there to St. John. So very different industry, first time into the health arena, and was responsible for metropolitan ambulance operations. So again, purpose was very much around getting the right ambulance to the right person at the right time, with some pretty disastrous outcomes when you get it wrong. So that was a really sort of interesting couple of years there, particularly as my first day at St. John was the day that the first cruise ship pulled into Fremantle full of people with COVID. And I literally went, what have I done? I've left somewhere with 8 years worth of sick leave up my sleeve and gone into this new organization who doesn't know me from a bar of soap, and in the middle of a pandemic. So, or at the beginning of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Wow. What a winning combination. Well played, Emma.
I was certainly left wondering whether I'd done the right thing.
Well, it's so good to hear that, because I think a lot of the next generation, and this is a question that I get asked, like, how did you end up in aged care? And really, the more you talk about the pathways in, and the fantastic stories where people have come through, I guess what they think is one avenue of what maybe they're working with there in America, originally from the States, still working on an Australian accent, but been here about 20 years. But in school, you have like guidance counselors that are really working with you towards the end of your high school, and trying to work if you want to do more of a trade, and then other elements. And I think back to some of those conversations, and I would say where I've ended up is probably the farthest from what was even being suggested to me. But it's a combination of really just following some of your internal drivers, and what gets you up out of bed every morning, what doesn't feel like work, and then sort of continue to extend that. And I think for a lot of the new grads and the new nurses, and even just new operational management, finance managers, etc. All the skills and resources we need in the sector. And there's your next campaign, mate. We gotta think about pathways to aged care, just so that it's
don't worry. I've got some things in the pipeline. I want to jump in here, Emma. You can help me. You can help me with this question, because I've known Rob for some time, and I know Miris for some time. I still have no idea what they do. But you guys work together. You've engaged them. Can you tell me what issue that you needed solving where you engaged Miris? What do they do?
They give me a huge insight into my business. So they take all the data and turn it into some really easily digestible platforms that we use on a very regular basis to look at our occupancy, our financial trending, our ANAC classification, so our resident cohort mix, and most importantly at the moment, our care minute compliance as well. And we're also doing a piece of work in the background with Myris around ANAC forecasting, with the use of AI and agents who take everything out of our clinical manager iCare system and analyze it and try and figure out what's changed with our resident. And they're looking for those changes which potentially lead to a care minute or funding uplift or decrease. So trying to take some of that very manual, very intense workload from our smart clinicians, do all of that work in the background so that we just have to do a validation exercise to make sure we're giving our residents the right amount of care every single day. So yeah.
So what was life? What was life like without Myris and what they do? Because that's how. Yeah, before Myris.
BM. Well, I haven't had the fortunate situation of experiencing that, because we actually had Myris in play when I joined. So over 2.5 years, Mercy Care has been working with Myris, but I certainly know what we would miss if we didn't have it. And I was speaking to a colleague yesterday, in fact, who had been in contact with some schedulers and another aged care provider that I won't mention, and asked the question, how are you tracking your care minutes? And the answer was manually on spreadsheets every day.
Oh, that's painful.
And they've got a lot more facilities than we do. And very quickly it was kind of like, oh, we're winning in that regard then. we're not doing that manually, which is great. So yeah.
And this is just an example of the how Emma's team is using the AI. It's basically a generative AI model. So 3 models going out and going through the ANAC questions, and starting with number 1, which is the DEMI assessments, and going through that entire department health algorithm to go and synthesize all the information in their care management system, their progress notes, everything, and then brings it all back. And then another model looks over it and says, you know what, I think on all of these probabilities that Rob cannot do a bed bridge. And then the third is a quality checker, and then it effectively confirms or denies that. And it also structures all the information so that then it's actually also can be used as a quality tool. So these are really the interesting use cases that could just continue to extend. But I want to just commend your organization for really being pioneering and putting yourself into a position to say, we want to try this. We recognize the inefficiencies it's causing on our staff and our teams, and that these are things that we can do with data today. And that's really what Myris has been long known for, is just structuring information and data and bringing that to the sector, and we continue to do that. But
is that all, Rob? I thought it was going to be some sort of complex overview. So in terms of practical outcomes, Emma, what would be a good sort of case study where there was a problem that needed solving, whether it be business or care? Obviously, we'd prefer care. We're building a community of purpose. And also, maybe because you're such a big fan of the interdependent ecosystem approach, have you been able to collaborate with other partners around that as well? I'm really interested to see your thinking in action.
That's a tricky one. We have problems all the time.
Yes.
It's very much around what are the solutions we come up with to fix it, and how can we leverage from technology, from previous work, so we're not reinventing the wheel. I'm trying to think now. Well, obviously, we just had the new Act. So one of the problems we had with the new Act was...
Do we have the new Act?
Yeah.
Emma's the first guest since the new Act, by the way.
Why hasn't anyone told us about this?
And the world
you're breaking new ground.
It didn't.
Yeah.
I know.
It's on Monday.
It sort of happened on Saturday, and we came back to work on Monday and carried on with life. So it's the delays to the act were a bit of a problem we faced. Definitely, there was a lot of stop start. We had engaged project managers to come on board to help us prepare. So we sort of ramped up, ramped down. Probably one of our biggest issues was then keeping people engaged with the changes. And during that time, we had some internal movements as well. So a few of our senior exec won promotions to other aged care providers, so loss of experience. But with that came opportunity. So that's where I say we can look at everything like a problem, or we can look for the opportunity it presents. And the opportunity was the increased collaboration across network, because you've got those connections. You get to learn, well, what are you doing? What is your best practice?
That's unique to Perth, though. I find WA is unique in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more on that. Keep going, because that's just an observation as
I am curious, Emma. Your background in operational delivery at such a high level, military and medical, and man, you've been on some amazing projects. Change management. Obviously being a big part there, I feel like that could be a passion area for you.
Yeah, a couple of things. And again, I was talking about change this week because it's always a hot topic. But a lot of people talk about being change fatigue, change resistant, frightened of change. If you fundamentally unpick it, generally it's not change that people are frightened of, because the example I always give is if someone wins lottery tonight, their lives change, and they're not generally frightened of winning millions of dollars. When we talk about change and people fearing that, it's normally because they're losing something. So they might be losing their shift pattern. They might be losing their team and working with someone else. If you can find out what it is that they're losing or they're frightened of losing, that's when you can really understand what's going on with people. But change, it's one of those things now that's inevitable. It's literally death, taxes, and change are the guaranteed things that are in life. So it's about then building resilience with our teams, about talking to them. And in the context of the change with the legislation, the message to my frontline was very much come to work and provide quality care, which you are already doing today and you will continue to do tomorrow. And if that's what you do, we will be absolutely fine. Because yes, there's some things that are changing in the background about what we do, why we do it, how we do it. But fundamentally, it's about looking after the people who trust us to care for them. So you just got to simplify.
I love that.
Yeah.
It feels like you're taking from your dad's book a bit there, being a paramedic, that frontline thinking, and it seems to underscore your career as well, taking on large operational challenges. I can't not overlook this one. This is the MH370. I mean, everyone talked about it with major headlines, but you were actually involved in the search and recovery. I don't know what you can or can't say, but when you were using technology, how do you become most effective on something like that in terms of the strategic approach? That'd be quite fascinating.
Was definitely a career highlight. It was the first time I've really seen some very powerful, significant stakeholders all turn up in a room on day one with no computers, no technology, no plan, and build from the ground up extremely fast. Because we were in the initial search phase, we were on a really, really tight deadline to locate the aircraft. So we literally had a floor that didn't even have chairs and tables in a government building in Perth. We had airlines, we had government stakeholders, international people, we had heads of department from a range of government departments all come together. And the tech got involved pretty quick. So it was, what have we got? What can we use? How can we use it? And as we turned from search to turned from rescue to recovery mode, and when we was obviously it was known there would be no survivors if the aircraft had gone down into water, it was then very much around working with partners who had the best capability. So we worked particularly close with a company called Fugro. They're an international company, and they had submersibles going backwards and forwards, looking at the bottom of the ocean during some very extraordinary weather conditions out at sea, trying to find trace of that aircraft. So it was definitely a career highlight, very powerful experience. I remain very confident that the aircraft will be located. Sadly, obviously not with any survivors now, but they came very, very close, but had to work with the Malaysians in particular because it was their airline. So we had certain restrictions that the Australian government had to abide by.
Well, I think we should give a shout out to everyone. What a noble cause, though, Emma. Would you like to give a shout out to the key people that were involved in that really important work?
Absolutely. In particular, Sir Angus Houston, who led the Joint Agency Command Centre, and Peter Foley, who was from the Aviation Transport Bureau of Security, who were phenomenal leaders and brought compassion with them every single day whilst that team was together. So, yeah.
Well, that's impressive. We are going to raise the roof for Sir Angus Houston and Peter Foley for great leadership. And wow, you are really living it. That many stakeholders on that many levels. So I'm really excited to see what you see. We had Ruben Jacob on the show a couple of weeks ago. You would love to connect with him, giving this idea of ecosystem thinking. We're really keen to encourage a community of purpose, and they really took on from the early days that there were concepts, but how do we engage with the providers and have the research and develop turn into commercialization? You know, and who are the stakeholders that can take ownership of that, saying that's a real problem that's going to move the needle in our operational environment? Do you have any of those sort of R&D thoughts where you're kind of looking at the horizon and going, now that I've had exposure to this best of class thinking around 30,000 foot view of industry, what do you see as the big challenge? Now that we're putting our heads up a little bit after November 1, what do you think are going to be those big challenges that are coming towards us?
I think the industry needs 5 minutes to breathe and to settle, and just sort of recover from everything we've been preparing for. And I think particularly in the new year, with people coming back refreshed, will give some really fabulous opportunities. A lot of people work really, really hard to deliver the business as usual at the same time as projects as well. We need to step away from that. And to do that, every provider needs to make sure they're financially sustainable. So if we've got our funding models right, if we're doing everything right in that space, if we are reducing agency use, etc., there's more money to spend on the R&D. There's more money to spend on the projects. We've got a project manager, fortunately. We've got project teams in Mercy Care. So we're now sort of very much pivoting away from 1 November Act to what's next, which is really exciting. A lot of it's still connected to quality care, but I would, again, still really like to see us diversify across industry and sort of go, okay, let's not just work in silo here because somebody else out there is doing the same thing as us. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's work together in partnership. That would be good.
We've got a lot of meat on this bone to pick apart. I want to bring Kim Hunter into the conversation. Sure, Kim, please. You're backstage. If you're ready to come on down, turn your camera on, and we'll bump you up to the main stage.
And as Kim comes down, it's really interesting because I mean, humans, we're all wired for stability, right? And I think as part of that, I would say even in our sector, we love things that are really structured in our routines and everything. And I think also clinicians tend to overestimate more than just the general public thinking about really what are the benefits then from this change. And I think really giving that vision, is probably the area that I've found that whether it's a new system, a new way of working, or God forbid, new AI or generative AI, even where, it's like sci-fi, and really helping them focus more and looking at and understanding the long-term benefits of what we're trying to do rather than just look at that disruption in the short term causes, because that's where the brain just naturally goes.
Yeah.
And I think, certainly our sector does, there needs, and there's a reason why we have change and business transformation as its own work stream, because we're humans. It's all part of the science of us. But it's really, really fantastic to hear the approaches you're taking, because I can't say every provider takes the same approaches, or they underestimate, or it's also can come back to the resource side of not every organization then has the ability to resource. If you're just a AD better and you're putting a new system, you may not, the project manager may also be the director of nursing or a care manager, and that's just not realistic, or what we can expect on some of the roles that see out there.
So it's the human
I think
side.
Kim was,
take a breath. It's okay to exhale. And what you said about resilience, I mean, that's really interesting too. How do you build that? Because all of a sudden life's been so full. Yeah, people can lose the sense of purpose when there isn't those big challenges too. It's almost, so how do you sort of galvanize around what's important and make people feel, because you've been involved in that sort of frontline environment training as well. I noticed you trained in first aid and combat military. Are there some things there that you have brought in, that sort of thinking around mental health and resilience, and
or just the mindset? I mean, the way you approach problems, I imagine, would be very different than your other colleagues.
Very different problems. But I generally tend to refer to it as durability rather than resilience. Resilience is about us getting up when we've been knocked over. And with my team, it's kind of about how do we avoid getting knocked over? And we might get tilted off center, but how do we not hit the floor before we have to get back up again? So just really, honestly, a lot of it's so basic. It's about being protective of your time. It's about making sure that you can comfortably say no to things when you need to. And it's about having a support network in place, having a really safe support network of people you can talk to, bounce things off, etc. It's not rocket science.
Yeah,
that reframing is so important. But,
interesting what you're saying though about the power of no and creating a culture where that's okay.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Kim Hunter did not join us, so we
was thinking that.
Pivot to our next topic. I actually did want to ask you about HELF, HELF, higher everyday living fee. And I've seen a lot of chatter online about this separating the haves from the have-nots. And what is the pros and cons here? I've heard all the cons. What are the pros? But can we dig into that?
I've got to be after Emma.
Quite a few providers have offered extra services or value add services historically, and some have never got into that space. And Mercy Care currently is in the latter. We've, from a mission and ethos perspective, taken the perspective historically around providing services above and beyond what we're required to in residential aged care, but they are unfunded. And I mentioned financial sustainability previously. One of the recommendations of the many recommendations that came from the Royal Commission was around making sure the sector is financially able to survive moving forward. And for us, part of that is then around people who have the ability contributing more towards their care, and with it contributing towards those additional things that we aren't legislatively required to provide. So we've heard some fantastic presentations. I was at the Stuart Brown Finance Forum in Perth recently. Fabulous presentation. More than happy to share the slides from that with anybody who wants them. And it was quite simple. It was about the basic things that people will be happy to pay for, and generally people are happy to pay for them. So if you think about, you go to you book yourself a hotel room. You can literally just book the accommodation, or you can book your breakfast, you can get your valet parking, you can get access to the spa or whatever it is. You can bundle those services on top. You're in charge, you choose. You know what you're going to pay, it's all really clear. So effectively, getting into that space where we start saying, if you want these extra things, it comes at a premium cost. We were, of course, going to make it affordable. There's been a lot of concern, as you mentioned, Anthony, in the industry around the haves and the have-nots. What does that mean for people that might not be able to afford them? For people that are supported by government, we will be definitely offering reduced fees to make sure that they can be one of the haves, but also being a bit more creative. So a lot of people go, I've got no idea what to buy mum for Christmas. She's in a residential aged care facility. She doesn't really need anything. She doesn't want anything. What do I buy mum? Well, maybe what you do is pay for a month's worth of things in a bundle that she wants. And that can be everything from trips to the hairdresser, fresh flowers to the room. It's access to streaming services on your TV. It's all the creature comforts we would have in our homes, but it's about us providing it to people who are living in a residential aged care facility. So that's it in a nutshell. There's some complexities there, which I'm sure some smart tech people can solve around having contracts in place, renewing contracts, actually how we track payments to make sure people have received the service they're paying for, etc. So there's some tech and logistics stuff in the background, but it's a quite simple complex that quite a few providers, as I said, have been doing for a while, but now it's supporting us to actually be sustainable into the future.
So I see one of the complaints being, let's say, half of the residents getting everything they want, and then the other half watching those fortunate residents and feeling that, let's say, resentment. It could go all the way down to resentment. How do you guys navigate that then?
And it will be hard. There'll definitely be some conversations, but the conversation is very much, you can have the service, but you need to enter into a contract with us. A bit like when you go to I won't name a hotel provider, but we all know the big ones. And there are people who are on club level, right up the top, and they've got access to all those facilities. And there's people who just booked a room and collect their towel and go and sit by the pool. But they don't particularly resent the people on the top floor. They might be a bit jealous, but if they want those services, they know they have to provide for them. There's quite a few models where if you want the extras, you pay for it. With Uber, you can get your basic Uber X, or you can get your different levels of Uber car. You pick, you're the consumer, but you know it comes at a cost. So it's just going to be a change in mindset with people coming into aged care around the fact that government can no longer afford to continue to fund everything. We want people to have a quality of life, but it comes at a cost, unfortunately. And we know with the boomers, there will be more people, there will be more older people in care than younger people paying taxes to pay for the care. So we have to start doing things differently, because otherwise future generations just won't be able to keep us accommodated when we're the ones in care.
What would be the some of the, I guess, the challenges for that? Because I guess what we've experienced is probably management expectations of families when those packages, and it just transforms, I think, in a care PCW or anyone who's on the floor. They feel that it just changes a dynamic because now it's, there's an extra $30 a day on top. And that's putting aside like just the operational challenges. Like it's on a cruise ship where we have bracelets on and you can say, I've got the drinks package. Look at me. Fill me up. You really have to know intimately what every resident has and where they're at, because there's so much more flexibility as to when they can stop, you can start it. And then there's actually quite a bit of risk to set up a program and put the cost into enabling the health packages, but then the execution I find is like probably is the biggest challenge as I see it. But I'd be keen to hear what you experienced with some of your first sites when you were rolling some of those programs out.
Well, so we're sort of looking at it. Most providers in residential care now have some kind of hotel services or business manager kind of role that supports the facility manager. And a big part of their job will very much be around being involved in health moving forward. We already have circumstances where residents need to receive different things. So if we think about the context of food and drink, everybody is assessed for their level of food modification that they might require. So making sure the right person gets the right texture modified food every single time. We look at our systems. Everything is live. We know who needs what. So it's not too far to stretch that concept to, does the person get alcohol with their dinner if they want it or not? Have they paid for it or not? It's going to be very much in that same space, I think, to be honest.
Did you have to backpedal from, I guess, services that were already being delivered at some sites that you just weren't recovering? And that becomes almost a little bit of the norm, because that's the other feedback we get, is that they look at the value proposition and so of that, and they go, well, that's 25% of that's already happening because we just do it that way as our standard, or maybe it's a localized director of nursing or facility manager that just has is more of a hospitality lens than maybe another site does, and those are some of the nuances there. But was that also part of what was experienced in those journeys? Because we get a lot of questions about health, and everyone wants the revenue streams, but to really do it properly, it is it's a pretty big undertaking, and it's a cultural change too.
And I think that's why, for the providers who haven't done it historically, it's quite a stumbling block. Everyone's nervous about making the change. They're nervous about how residents are going to respond to being told they need to pay extra for things they had for free yesterday. Nervous about uptake, etc. And the advice very much from those who are already doing it or those who are advocating for it is start small, start simple. So you don't have to go to the platinum package on day one. It can be simple things that you're already doing. So access to a bus trip once a month. Most providers are already providing bus trips to residents. Access to Wi-Fi. It can be really basic things that we're already doing. We can start small and then we can grow from there. If we overcomplicate things, we'll never get off the ground, is the reality.
I think there's some really good practical measures there, Emma. I wanted to ask you, you attended a recent forum with CEDA, and you've got an WA aged care minister, Simone McGurk. What's top of mind for her? Because obviously we haven't given her airtime before. That's the WA aged care industry. Because you've got such high occupancy, obviously you've got other focuses. Good problem to have. So then where do you focus elsewhere?
The message came through really loud and clear from her around the fact that there's recognition we cannot build the number of beds required by 2030 or beyond fast enough. So as an industry, with our partners, and the commission were there as well. So government, commission and industry, we've got to work in partnership. We have to be creative. We've got to be smarter. We can't keep going the way we are. In the future, whilst occupancy is high now, the anticipated future model is the people coming into care will either be living with dementia or are potentially on a palliative pathway. So may not be with us for as long. So it will be less the people who come into care for years and years, who are mobile, have capacity, etc. A very different cohort of residents in the future. So that conversation now about being in partnership with village management, with independent living units, the support at home model, making sure people can age in place. We really have to get on that bus and go on that journey. There was a strong message that providers that are not starting to think about what's coming in 10 years' time will really struggle to keep up. But the takeaway very much from me from that CEDA event was how we're all in it together. There's historical sort of them and us between, whether it's government and the sector, whether it's between the commission and the sector. The message coming out of CEDA was very different and so refreshing. The Deputy Commissioner, Gary Rake, was there, and he was very open. He was like, if you've got a question, literally contact me in LinkedIn. You will get my phone number, my personal phone number in my signature block. Give me a call. So to hear that from a deputy commissioner of the commission was so refreshing. It was very much, we want to support the sector.
So I think we're going to do a shout out for Gary Rake for that openness, and Simone Girk for that collaborative approach. And we're inviting you onto the show. We'd love to have Emma come back with Gary and Simone, and we're going to raise the roof for them and the good work they're doing. And that's great to see CEDA as a think tank becoming so engaged with all the levels of government and industry.
I also know
together with one of our regular friends of the show, Paul Sadler, recently on workforce management. We love Paul.
Yes, he was so easy to work with. We met literally about 5 minutes before we were on stage together in person. We'd sort of collaborated online a little bit, but so easy to work with. Incredible amount of knowledge and experience. Yes. He's lovely.
Yes. It was interesting too when I was just we had this week as well there's a review by the Department of Health on effectively the accommodation pricing, and really what the department's trying to understand is why aren't Mercy and others building more, doing more, extend the services, because they want to see another 90,000 beds built. And I had my quick response, which was liquidity and really shoring that up for providers. But where do you see that too? Because everything you're noting, we need more of. We need to collaborate better with the acute sector. We need to support them in various ways. We need also other accommodation and alternative housing models that may have senior living or group home or varied elements that are tailored to each individual's prognosis or deterioration, or even personal preferences about where they want to end up. But I guess where do you see that that issue going, and what are some of the areas that we should be doing more of, because that's what they're really looking for, some of those answers.
And it's I think the sustainability is critical to that. So again at the Stuart Brown Forum, there's some really clever financial information shared around how long it would take to recover the costs of building a new facility. And for so many small providers, it's just it doesn't stack up. It will take too long. You have to spend too much in the interim. Even just getting the funding from the bank, it doesn't stack up. So there's got to be more investment from government to support, whether that's around reduced pricing, whether it's grants, etc. There definitely has to be input from them. But also I think because there's still so much uncertainty about what to build. So if you sort of think really from when you commit to something, you're 5 years away from opening the doors. That's a long time. And in our sector, whilst a lot of people kind of go, oh, aged care, it hasn't changed, we're still doing the same things we were doing 20 years ago, the pace of change is very much something we're noticing. So in 5 years, as I mentioned, the complexity of the residents will be different. The demographic is changing. The amount people can co-contribute is changing. And at the moment, I think providers are still really struggling to understand what's going to be required. So then investing becomes very risky.
In that vision, being able to even back up the assumptions, because I know even in my short time in the board, our biggest challenge was we were selling rooms at the right price. We just weren't able to collect the capital because there's really no stick or anything you can bring outside of what once you admit them. And that was really something hard to go back to your financial assumptions and say, well, we thought we'd have an extra 15 million in. Until we get it, we're paying mezz financing sort of levels of debt, and that's not the place you want to be with this. With your operations.
Not sustainable at
all.
On.
No. Hey, we've got Michael Harders backstage. I'm adding him on. I don't know if he realized he was going to jump on, but I know the guy. I think he'd be fine with.
Come on down, Michael.
Raising the roof for Michael. Come on, turn the camera back on.
Bringing it home strong with Michael Harders. Hi, Michael.
We'll give him some time to brush his hair. I'll
don't be shy, Mike.
Back once he's
get a quick shave and clone. And I think he gave him too many Mai Tais. Yeah.
The bar was open, and it is
the Grant Thornton course.
It is Friday.
just in case he doesn't come on, what is your win for the week, Emma? And what are you looking forward to? You said everyone needs to take 5 minutes to let the new Aged Care Act settle. How long will it take till everyone's got their feet under them and ready to tackle the new area of aged care?
I think for those of us in residential, it will be quicker than those particularly in the home care space. I think the home care teams have still got a little bit of work to do. They had a huge amount of one-to-one work to do with their clients around new contracts, etc. So providers are still sort of hurting a little bit in that side of the business. Win for the week would be bringing my team together yesterday to talk about our operational actions that we're committed to between now and the end of this financial year, and a very positive group of people who are passionate about change. So despite everything, they're not change fatigued. They want to continuously improve. I'm very much, as you know, all about my team. They are a fantastic group of humans. So that's my win for the week. Simple but effective. Yeah.
That's a great win. And what about hobbies, Emma? I mean, we always hear about the professional journey of people, but is there anything people don't know?
Bring your dog back on the camera.
Emma Newman. That you would.
Emma Newman has an awesome
pet. Mostly the gym. So
it's a safe place. You can tell us.
Yes. I'm a bit of an addict in that space. I'm there 7 days a week. It's pretty much the only place where somebody else tells me what to do, which is lovely.
Right. Yeah. Bravely and fearlessly.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we've got Michael. Michael is on. I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, Michael. How are you?
Oh, you're going to have to unmute. Oh, no.
Oh, gone again.
Technical difficulties.
So I'm going to ask you your favourite routines, Emma. Are you a weightlifter? I'm always surprised what people are into when it comes to gym. There are different streams.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
Yeah,
literally a bit of everything. So I do quite a few spin classes, but also quite a few weight classes as well. So it's, I think,
can't go wrong.
we've got to stay active, and certainly coming into this sector. Looking at things like re-enablement, strength and balance. None of us are getting younger. And if we don't invest now, it will be really hard to do that later. So,
Is Tom Cruise in the background?
He's around. Let me get him. Tom Cruise, come here.
No.
Tom Cruise.
Emma's people have got to talk to his people. And she's only negotiated so many appearances.
Does this Tom Cruise jump on the couch?
We're going to
win. There's Tom. Just wait till you see Brad Pitt.
Tommy. Who's a happy boy? Well, for me, Emma, I love a bit of Pilates to change it up. You talked about balance.
Yeah.
What better than a yoga pose or a Pilates hold?
Definitely. And actually surprisingly challenging. People think it's easy. It's not.
Yep, until you try.
I have a wife who was a Pilates instructor, and yes, I remember the first class I went to. I was like, "What is this? I'm dying! Get me out of here!"
Rob, those springs can be unforgiving if you don't know what.
Yeah, they can. I'm like, "What was that? Is that a muscle?"
I think we've covered all there is to cover, and I'm going to hand it over to Owen to give us the old quote to play us out. But Emma, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
What a wonderful story, Emma. I'm so glad to hear more.
The roof for Emma.
Absolutely. Emma.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And don't forget, we're building a community of purpose here. And as Emma said, we're all about making a difference every day in a small way, whatever way we can. We're united in that effort of, and that's why we love saying all for one. And one for
all things
aged
care, baby.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you again, Emma.
Take care, please.